G'day, been a while since the last video, time for another one. So those that have been following on Facebook, on the Drive South Facebook page, have seen there's been quite a lot of progress being made in the chassis. What we need to do today is go back a few steps, look at the chassis design process and show some photos around the construction process as well and get everyone up to date. So when we actually went down and started discussing how we do this, the chassis supplier suggested that we use an extruded and bonded aluminium platform, just like Audi, you see on screen there, that's an Audi R8, or a Ferrari 458 that you see here. What's the advantages of using aluminium? Well, it's nice and light, and it's easy to work with, and it can be made pretty strong. It has much better corrosion resistance to steel, and it's pretty easy to manufacture. Further to that, we discussed the use of aluminium honeycomb sandwich panel for the floor, firewall and radio support. I was keen as I first saw this in motorsport chassis back in the early Formula Holden days, prior to the arrival of carbon fibre. It's as light as sheet, but has superior strength capability. With modern technology, honeycomb can be cut on a plasma bed, which simplifies the folding process. Not even Ferrari or Audi use honeycomb. In addition, some steel would be used in critical mass areas to add strength, like the sills, forward rails and crossmember. The top section of the chassis would be chrome moly. For the Ford versus Ferrari fans, this is what a GT40 looks like under the skin. Note the extensive use of aluminium sheet and honeycomb. So here's some early shots of the chassis design, and you can see there the components of the chassis. So for example, the sill panel there is one CAD file that's sent to a cutting and folding machine where it's cut and folded, and locators are built into the panel itself. You can see from that early design how similar it is to the Audi R8 chassis on screen there as a comparison. The next shot shows the underneath design with lots of cross bracing front and rear to tie everything together. This next one shows the engine in place with the radiator and fan. It also shows the steering column and dash support, the multimedia mount and the air conditioner box. There's another shot of the engine in place with the bonnet hinges, and it also shows the wheels in place. The radio support panel is there as well as the cowl panel. More detail here showing the seats in place and how the wheel specs included, and the front suspension and the rack. To prove the CAD process worked, when we optimised the location for the steering rack, it went through the middle of the sump. So we had to source a new sump that allowed for the rack location to be optimised without interfering with the engine. You'll also note here that the lower suspension control arm is mounted on the inside of the crossmember rather than the outside, again pointing to that optimised suspension design. So here's another shot of the rear showing the cross bracing for the differential, and also a shot of the seats in place, the steering column, steering wheel. And this one here, further development, shows the rear crash protection in place and the rollover protection in place, or the roof support panel. And a side shot for luck. This is a screenshot of the suspension design program, showing the front suspension and the steering rack in place. By moving the arm and rack location points around in the program, you can simulate movement from full bump to full droop, measuring camber, castrum and toe changes in 5mm increments. This allows for optimum suspension design, allowing the adoption of camber change under compression to optimise the contact patch during cornering, and also minimise bump steer. This one here is design sign-off, showing the front and rear crash protection after all the components have been fitted to the model. The design of the chassis is now complete and manufacture can commence. This car will effectively be a supercar for the street, light, safe and strong, Expected car weight around 1100 kilos with 325 kilowatts. Should be pretty exciting. On to construction. This is the chrome moly roof support section showing the mounts to the main structure, the hatch hinge mounts, the front seat belt upper mount, and the cowl mount. These are the bead pillar and rear aluminium extrusions as manufactured. These are the base extruded sections cut and folded on the CAD controlled folding machine with any mounting points and locators produced by the machine. Here they are in place. This is showing the rear of the car coming together with those additional extruded sections forming part of the structure. Note the top shock mount in black there is fabricated. The roof support's now in place and the rear diff subframe is in place supporting the 35 spline 9-inch IRS. Here's the front suspension crossmember. A decision was made to fabricate our own, providing the freedom to mount the front suspension as dictated by the suspension program. Even though this is steel, it's considerably lighter than the off-the-shelf unit originally purchased for the project. Note the provision for hydraulic engine mounts, needed to stop LS vibrations affecting the passenger comfort. Here the front rails with the crossmember in place. Note the amount of cross bracing to support these rails, a weak point in the factory car. This is a combination of steel and aluminium, belt and braces for strength. In this last photo, you can really see the combination of materials with steel, aluminium and honeycomb coming together to form a super strong structure. Here's the radio support panel prior to fitting. Note that it's honeycomb and that various requirements for headlights, mounts and locators have been laser cut into each piece. This will be a double layer of honeycomb for additional strength and glued together. These next few shots show the floor, firewall and trans tunnel, again made from honeycomb. The rivets are locators as well as fasteners. These are the seat mounts, showing one in place and the other with glue ready for installation. The rear luggage section of the factory car is chipboard. In keeping with the theme, this is now honeycomb. Our party trick here is that the drop tank is a dummy. The fuel cell sits above the rear axle line, forward for weight distribution and safe from impact. The rear section will house a full-size spare and the battery. Note how the honeycomb edges are nicely finished off. Here's the completed chassis. I'm super happy with the outcome so far. This car with the LS3 engine and solid driveline components will be light and strong with 325 kilowatts of power. Should be a beast. Next steps. To ensure that the design process is being accurate, a physical build of the components that interface with the chassis will be completed before the car is stripped again for chassis paint and reassembled for body paint, wired, plumbed and trimmed. I hope you've enjoyed that. Keep an eye on Drive South Facebook page for further updates.